All right. Hey, AoF. You guys know what time it is. Welcome back to season 8. I have definitely one of my favorite companies and people today. None other than the amazing Steve Weiss. And while some of you may not know him, I guarantee you know what he does. Okay. If you have taken any LinkedIn learning course, whether it's in data and AI, right, Steve?
And AI,
And what other segment is data, AI, and is there another one?
analytics.
Sorry, how could I forget analytics? Oh, we're analytics on fire. Oh my gosh. Or analytics on LinkedIn. Steve is the content master and he controls that. So I'm excited to have him here today, mainly because I have done 2 LinkedIn courses in the last about 2 to 3 years. And not only have I had a phenomenal experience, not me here showing the gear, but like working with LinkedIn is fascinating, right? Like LinkedIn bought Linda and like they are a content machine. And so as we approach 2024, I thought it'd be a good idea to talk to Steve because Steve, how many classes does LinkedIn have? Like LinkedIn Learning in data analytics and AI?
We have about 2,000 that connect in one way or another to data analytics AI.
Oh my gosh. So to say he's seen it all at this stage and understands data education, where it's going and where you and your team need to go with, this conversation, I think, is going to set the tone for your 2024 educational budget. All right. Okay. But before we get started, Steve, I know you. I love you. We've become friends. Thank you so much for your support. And I think you know what that means. Thank you. That goes far and deep. Let's start off by telling the web something about yourself that most people do not know.
Oh man, the horrible secret is I've been playing guitar, trying to play guitar for a long, long time, longer than I can remember. And I own now something like 11 guitars. I say something like because there's like 10 proper guitars and one that's called a cigar box guitar. But they're all
Mm,
fun as can be. And I'm not very good at any of them. But important thing is I'm better now than I was
that's
a
good.
year ago. And a year ago, I was better than I was a year before that. And to be honest, the longer I've lived, the more I realize it is just wonderful to honor the creative impulse inside you, even if it's
I
just
love
plugging in
it.
your guitar and putting your headphones on, not cranking or disturbing anybody else, but just go be with your musical inspiration, and that has a wonderfully beneficial meditative effect I have found.
That's
Just
awesome. That is so
just
awesome.
go be zen with your instrument, and it's amazing. You do that for 20 minutes in the morning, and then you are ready to go rock and roll. Do that, and do a little workout every day, and that really helps
Yeah.
find you some balance.
No, that's awesome, and thank you. And we have had a lot of interesting, talented people on AOF, and I always find that the people that are thriving the best, they always have a creative edge, whether it's an instrument, art, they have something on the side that they're doing that they absolutely love. So thank you for sharing that with AOF. And if you guys love guitars, I have no idea what a cigar guitar is or looks like, but if you like guitars, you can inbox Steve. You can find him on LinkedIn. I can guarantee you that. And you could write AOF on there and talk about guitars. All right. That's super awesome. Okay, so fill in the gaps a little bit and tell us a little bit more about yourself because you yourself are a fascinating human being.
I don't know about that. Um, but
You are.
so a little bit about my background is educationally, I went to Purdue University, had a double major in technical writing, and they do have majors on that, and in film. And
Nice.
actually, I was accepted to film school after I graduated. And talk about setbacks, my financing fell through. So I did not. I was not in a position any longer to pursue a career in film. So I went over to technical writing. I spent about 2 decades in technical
No
writing,
way.
doing computer books and stuff like that. And after about 2 decades of that, I landed at lynda.com, which very
That's
quickly
right.
after I joined them um, became LinkedIn Learning. I was hired
That's right.
to quote, this is 8 years ago, to build a library, a bunch of courses on big data. We weren't even calling it data science 8 years ago. Big data. Um, and over the last 8 years, we've built up all of those courses we talked about earlier. And just to be very clear, It's no longer just Steve doing any of this. It's all of my colleagues, including the amazing Natalie Poe, who now oversees all of our AI and
I love
machine
it.
learning stuff, and some other wonderful people too. But there's a bunch of us doing it because um,
How big is
data
your
is
team?
data is ubiquitous. So we have about a dozen content managers. I'm a content manager um, who focus on different vocational areas. So there's like one of my colleagues focuses on data engineering. My colleague
Okay.
Natalie focuses on AI. There are people who focus on nothing but business skills, on marketing. There are people who focus on programming. You name it, anywhere in that intersection, both realms of business, technology, and even some stuff on creative, because that's where lynda.com started, on Photoshop, digital photography, audio, stuff like that. We have courses on it.
Very cool. And everybody, like when I went to the LinkedIn, I have two LinkedIn courses as I mentioned, which I'm happy to put the links to. One is on data evangelism and data advocate. The other one is on how to be a better data analyst and the soft skills. And when I went to the Cupertino where the LinkedIn studios are, it's a full like Hollywood production. And I am not joking. Like it's a full, it's the whole experience is fascinating to me because I don't know what I was expecting. Not that I expected anything less, but like honestly, it's captivating, right? Like it's green rooms. I had my own room. Then it's our screens. Our producers are there, and I mean, people see these courses, and we'll get into that a bit more, and they don't realize how much work it takes. You know, they see them online and how well they're produced, and they think maybe you just sit behind your computer, guys. It is a lot of work to get 2000 courses up. Okay, all right, so let's jump into the topic here. So the reason that I brought you on is, you know, as we're approaching 2024, the data industry is going through a few things, all right? And they're going through, you know, we know about the layoffs, right? There's a lot of layoffs that are happening. Data leaders themselves, particularly talking to AoF data leaders now, are looking at going, all right, how do I do more with less? And one of the components of doing more with less is how do I keep my team upskill and up to date? Because you and I both know that data analytics and AI are becoming one big merge bucket. Okay, AI is driving the way, and so you're not going to get out of it. And I think what I'd like to set the tone for, first of all, is like, as someone who is over, you know, the content for LinkedIn Learning with 2000 courses, what are some of the trends that you're seeing in data education?
Yeah, it's a great question. And these are challenging times. In terms of
Mhm.
that intersection that I talked about before between tech and business, the biggest trend that we're seeing, and we talk about this when we blog about the LinkedIn educational graph, the studies that our R&D team does, which anybody can follow on for free on LinkedIn, not LinkedIn Premium where LinkedIn
Mhm.
Learning lives. Um, but the number one growth area is in soft skills. The intersectional
Woohoo!
the intersectional skills that everybody in a data org needs. Because the thing is, hard skills, and we'll get to this in more detail in a minute, but hard skills kind of come and go. Um,
That's right.
talking
I
about
love it.
depending on what your organization, what tools you use, what your platforms are, and whatnot. You might have a need for SQL queries now where you didn't have before, or vice versa. You might have switched
Mhm.
over to a new platform where you no longer need those kind of hard skills, but the soft skills are ubiquitous. It's being able for one
Mhm.
member of your org to speak to another member of your org, or to one of your customers or whatever, and to be able to explain what you're doing. Explainable AI.
Mhm.
We'll get to that in a bit. Um, but it's everybody being able to kind of speak the same language, and that goes with how data works, how analytics work, being able to rationalize, justify your idea for a new project. What does the data look like? Be able to speak about this. Everybody doesn't need to be math majors in order to understand analytics, or even to
I
use
so
basic
agree.
stats. Um, and
Now,
also,
here's my
and also
question.
how to.
Hold on,
I'm
before,
sorry. Go on. Yeah.
sorry, not to interrupt you, but why do you think that there's such an emphasis on soft skills?
Um, I think it's because more and more organizations are using data. So let's think about it like this. 8 years ago, it was just big data. A few years,
Mhm.
hence toward now, organizations had maybe one data scientist, right? Go take this challenge to the data scientist. A few years later, more and more orgs started to have data teams. And
Correct.
as data became more and more ubiquitous, then a lot of orgs started to put a data specialist on different teams throughout an org. And then, as we've seen the development of the tools that people use, and you can see this right now, see what Microsoft is doing, what Tableau is doing, they're making the tools so anybody in any of your organization's
That's right.
teams can do analytics, can do basic
Mhm.
data work. So the soft skills are crucial for everybody to be able to be working on the same projects. And also to understand really mission critical concepts like data governance, because that's so important that everybody in an
Yeah.
organization understand the importance of data security, data privacy, who should have what rights to access data, how that data should be used. None of this stuff can be an afterthought. It needs to be front and center with everybody's working operational priorities in your org.
No, I like that you brought this up, and I'm just going through the notes that you sent. And one of the things that I thought that you brought up was great is you talked a bit about the fact that like the world would need more people who can speak to each other about the SWOT data. Could you just elaborate on that? Because I think that's so powerful for data leaders that are trying to explain even to their team, right? Everybody is about their technical prowess, which is fine. But with generative AI coming in, right? Why is this corely important? I'm asking the same question, but I think more kind of direct.
Oh yeah, and SWOT for all of our viewers: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Um,
Mhm.
you can apply that, of course, to anything.
Yep.
Even in the realm of data, it's like, all right, so is this new technology? What are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats to it? A new initiative, a whole new emerging set of technologies like generative AI. Well, for one thing, strategically, it's good to have everybody thinking about that. I'd like to think in an
Right.
organization, everybody should think of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. With generative AI, um, oh heavens, the strengths are, and we'll get to this in a little bit, probably in more detail, but the strengths of what can this possibly do? We're only beginning to scratch the surface of what generative AI can do. Down at the level of a basic, what I call data worker, of like, can I use generative AI to just help me get into a spreadsheet and find some insights or whatnot, or to describe a little bit more quickly what I'm finding. I'm telling you, Gen AI is a wonderful tool for just if you don't have that creative mojo in your head right now, to write up a report, to write eloquently about what you're finding. It's
Absolutely.
wonderful. It's
Absolutely.
wonderful to be able to use that, and obviously, it's nothing that you just take verbatim and put up on screen or put in a report. You need to check the work and everything. But it's a wonderful way, a wonderful aid for kind of
So
getting
Steve,
you quickly there.
if
Go on.
if it's so wonderful, why was I not allowed to use it for my LinkedIn course? Putting them on the spot here,
Because no, 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 no,
AoF.
no. Because it is still early days.
Right.
Because some of the
Copyright
weaknesses are
issues.
copyright issues.
Yeah.
That stuff hasn't quite been figured out, and that's not just on LinkedIn; it's on everybody. And those are the things that we're all following very quickly, and it is changing every day. It seems like. So we have some really interesting discussion groups here that say, "Oh, it, very smart people who follow this and
Yeah.
are gobsmacked by what they're seeing in the best way, though."
Anyway, I know why. I know that it's young and you could get in trouble with copywriting, but I just brought it up to put you like, okay, so
Mhm.
so another question for you, right? The data world has seen a number of trends and you've seen it. I mean, you've been at LinkedIn how many years now? You started in Linda like
Going,
20 something years.
yeah, going on 8 years.
Right. Okay. But but you've seen the transition. So you were
Mhm.
there for the big data hype cycle that died. Then we had the data analyst cycle. I think it's still happening. Data storytelling cycle. One of the things that really prevailed during the pandemic was the data literacy era, right? which then transform
Oh,
into the data inform error. And one of the things I thought was fascinating when we were prepping for the show is you talked a bit about data literacy is important. I don't need to beat that drum here. I've had Jordan Moreau on a few times, but you talked about decision intelligence. Why don't you talk to AoF about decision intelligence and why you feel that that's important, and also what you're seeing from an educational perspective with that?
I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's one of the most underrepresented idea areas in the data space right now. Decision, and that includes in the business data space. So decision intelligence. I can't go on and on about it. We don't have enough time. Google it. There's plenty to read about that. It's a discipline that's been advocated and pioneered by Cassie Kozyrkov, who was the very first decision scientist at Google and held that position for several years.
Oh,
She has since gone on to start up some really interesting new ventures. So follow Cassie. That's
no, no, no.
Kozyr.
I got it. I'm putting it up on the screen. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Let me show it
So
here.
decision,
There we go.
I love in a conversation with Cassie, she said, if you, and coming from Google, she's saying, if you give a problem or a challenge to a data scientist, they're going to give you inevitably a data scientist solution. Um,
Yes,
it's
I
kind
was
of
there.
it's kind of like that old saw, to a hammer, the entire world is a nail. And so that doesn't delegitimize the value that data scientists bring to your process. But what it does mean, decision intelligence, is that you're not just using data to make the decisions that drive your business forward. And it can sound like such an obvious thing. But the thing is, Cassie helped put it into a structured way of thinking that any business can use.
Mm,
It's what helps engineers make decisions. That includes looking at the data and seeing what that says, but also asking yourself, is the problem I'm trying to solve, is the answer I'm looking for something that optimally would even be provided by data? Data can tell us a lot of things. Sometimes it can be pretty subjective, believe it or not, how you interpret the data. There are still humans involved in all of this. And that's probably going to be one of the most important things that we think about as data professionals, as analytics professionals, as business professionals, is how does data fit into our entire decision-making process? We don't use
right.
data and data itself because with generative AI, the temptation is there. Back to those SWOT issues. The temptation is there just to let the AI make the decision for you. And we have to get organization wide. We have to make sure that everybody understands the power of AI, but the power necessary from humans to keep it in check, to just
And
check
you
the
call this
work. And
decision intelligence? This is called decision
yes,
intelligence. It's
yeah,
interesting. The reason I bring that up is because a few years ago, I did a podcast with Ella Halil. She was back then the head of data science at Shopify. She's now the head of data science at Meta. And she actually talked about being data informed. And the premise of being data informed, which you probably know, is that the whole world was like data, let's be data driven, which was like we take the data and that's it, nothing else matters. Her approach was, hey, we take the data, but we also have human experience. We have people that understand things because they've been here for a while. How do we make sure that we are data informed, which is we take the data, we add in that human experience, knowledge, and intuition, and then we come up with an informed decision. And so I almost feel like decision intelligence is kind of the intelligence behind measuring that. Would you
mhm,
agree with that?
I would totally agree with that. And
Okay,
it's
and
and
so
it is.
yeah.
I'm sorry, go on.
No, no. So I was going to ask you. So just on this topic, before we close it off with decision intelligence, what you're stating is that data teams need to look at how they can start to incorporate this practice. If that's is that what you call that practice into their teams, correct?
Absolutely. Ask yourself, what is fundamentally the thing that we're trying to solve for, rather than pulling some data and saying, hey, look, I've got some data. Okay, what is your proposition now. Don't just point to data and say, this leads to this, let's do that, he said very abstractly. But it's like,
Mm.
what are we actually trying to accomplish? And is data the best way to drive how we're reaching that decision? Data helps.
Okay, and
Sometimes data isn't the only answer that's going to
yeah.
inform what your strategy needs to be.
No, this is not an advertisement for LinkedIn. We do have a sponsor, which I'll speak about. We put up our sponsor advert, but is there a segment on LinkedIn Learning that has a focus primarily on decision intelligence?
Yeah, actually, we have a course by Cassie called
Okay, you do.
Decision Intelligence, and I think it's a terrific course. Just saying that.
Okay. Yeah, you're not biased. Okay, so let's get back into the structure here. I want to get back to education. So for AoF, right? So if I am a data leader and I'm going back to kind of my original question, and I'm looking at reduced budget, I need to do more with less. My team needs to keep up. What are your recommendations for how data leaders, first of all, as my first persona, I'll get to the data team and the individual person, but how should they be approaching education in 2024?
I think first of all, ask yourself, kind of back to that decision intelligence, but what are we trying to accomplish in our business? I mean, this plugs in directly to what kind of skills do I think my people need? I always start
Yeah.
with making that dichotomy between soft skills and hard skills. Um, if the tools you're using, which require the use of hard skills, um, are what you're sticking with, make sure that everyone on your team has those skills. Don't just assume that everybody knows
Yeah.
how to use Tableau optimally, or if you're relying more and more on Python. Um, Ask yourself, talk to your team. Depending on how large your organization is, ask your HR department. Your HR department probably has a learning and development team, but ask them
Mhm.
to huddle with your engineering teams, who then can get with their own teams and see what kind of skills are they being asked to use that they don't fully have yet. It's kind of
Okay.
a big messy space because there are so many skills. Oh, LinkedIn Learning, um, just tracking all this, and we do track it. I can pull the
Okay.
top list of 30,000 skills that LinkedIn members list and check those against the top 30,000 skills that recruiters are looking for. And it's really fascinating to see
Darn
the
it. Why
change
didn't I ask you
dynamic
to
on
bring that data? Do you know any of the top three? Darn it. Sorry. I'm so sorry, guys. I know you're probably in the comments like, what are they? All right. Do you happen to know what the top three are off the top of your head?
One of them is,
Such
believe it
good
or not,
information.
one of them is Excel. Yep, that's right. Year after year after year,
No. Wait.
and
I don't
the
have,
number
where's my sounds? Oh my
the
gosh.
number
Don't.
one the number
Oh.
one data tool
Oh.
is still, and it's used for so much more than that, but it's Excel. Thing
Oh.
is, in the top 1% of those 30,000 skills are also Power BI and Tableau.
Oh, oh my gosh. So literally the top skill is no, okay, hold on, Steve, though.
Mhm.
Microsoft is owned by LinkedIn. This is not bias, is it? LinkedIn owns
Yeah,
Microsoft. Well, Microsoft, yeah.
yeah, truly it is not. Um,
Okay. Wow. So
but
it
it's been amazing to see this year after year after year. I've been doing this for 8 years.
wow.
And even
Wow.
years ago, people in the company would come to me and say, when are we going to, when are we going to put less emphasis on courses on Excel and more on hard data
Yeah.
science? Um, and there was no choice. We
Wow.
simply did both and everything. But my answer
That,
to folks like that was
that the data
actually
talk.
Excel. Excel is used by more people around the world to do basic data work than any other tool. Some of that is being obviated by another tool from Microsoft, Power BI, but
Yeah, of
that's been
course.
a long process that's been developing too.
Wow.
So back to our discussion point of like, what can orgs with limited, or being very
Resources. Yeah.
frugal with their resources, what can they do? I think it is a good idea if you do have an L&D department, learning and development, to make sure that they're fully engaged with your engineering teams, with all of your teams, I should say too. Because here's the thing, more and more orgs aren't the data people and the non-data people. I think of more and more orgs, the way I classify the four areas of work in most orgs is you've got data workers, data
Yep.
professionals,
Yep.
data scientists, the folks doing
Mhm.
the high level work on AI and machine learning,
Mhm.
and you have data strategists, who are a lot of the C-suite
Mhm.
executives, a lot of the team leaders. They're assessing, what do we need to learn? What are my competitors going to be using? Those kinds of things. So if you do have an L&D team, ask them to make sure that they're speaking with everybody in an org, to make sure that everyone has the hard skills that they need. If you're porting yourself over to Tableau, do you have the training to make sure that everybody knows how to use Tableau optimally? There could be some techniques connected with Tableau that folks don't know about, which is such as
Mhm.
just downloading data sets and doing some work in Excel. A lot of people still do that with Tableau, and that's just one example. But I mean, stay connected with your workers. If you're a data org,
Okay.
and we are all data orgs, be asking them, do you have the skills that you need? Those are the hard skills. The soft skills we already covered. Make sure
Yeah.
that everyone can speak the same language, and that everybody is comfortable with basic statistics. You don't have to be a math major to understand statistics. It's very liberating,
I
by the
agree with
way,
that.
if you're a little bit of a math phobe and you
But
come
you don't
out
have to
of a,
be.
of a, of a stats course and you go, oh my goodness, I actually get this. Um,
Mhm.
so it's fun, and data. Yes, data is fun. Data runs the world, and it is quite possible to teach everybody basic data competency. That is where I would focus: is making sure everybody has the same skill sets as a foundation, and then as
Okay.
your
No.
different areas get more specialized, ask
Yeah.
your people if they're getting what they need.
Okay. So I want to make sure, because this is a master class, I have the 3 concise steps, right? So the
Yeah.
first step that you stated is to, I think you said, have your engineer, your data team get with your HR team or your learning development department and do an
Yeah.
assessment on skill gaps. Correct?
Yes.
That's step one. Okay. And then you said step two is, and I may have missed this, is you said then take a look at, you said, your goals under your software and take an assessment of the skill sets that are needed there. Is that correct?
Hmm. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And then where I want to clarify is step three then is to then put those together, kind of do a gap analysis, and then figure out where you need to focus. Correct?
Absolutely. And there's a
Okay.
there's a fourth one too that I was going to add,
Yes, please.
which is keep an open mind about generative AI. That's kind of the,
Yes.
the elephant in the room. Um, and by keeping an open mind, I mean that goes both ways. So if we do see this, if you're thinking that we've seen all this before and it's kind of BS, like remember Web3,
No.
remember blockchain. Blockchain never did
Quantum
go away, by
computing.
the way.
I'm still
Yeah,
waiting.
exactly. If you're thinking this is just hype, it isn't. Um,
Thank you for
and
that.
don't discount um, that Gen AI is somehow being overhyped or whatnot. That said, things are happening so fast. You need to
Yeah.
educate yourself and those on your team as soon as possible.
Okay.
And there are a million ways that you can do this on the web. But you need to develop and continue evolving a use policy. That's the most important thing. because
Okay.
anybody in your org can use Gen AI, even if you have a prohibition against it. So you need to be upfront with your employees about what the use policy is.
That's right.
You need to ask yourself hard questions about where AI might take. Here are like three different things to think about. What is generative AI? What's the effect going to be on specific jobs in your organization? Again, if you're big enough to have an L&D team, you need to be paying attention to that. How is that going to change, possibly anyway,
Right.
how people do their jobs in the next 12 months and the next 18 months? Um, we do that right here at LinkedIn. Um, you
Mm,
need to ask yourself the effect of generative AI on what your organization does, its operational and its business models. How could this affect us? And you need to ask
okay.
what generative AI, what the effect is on your entire industry. Like
Yeah.
an example I use, a couple of examples, is print publishing and over-the-air radio, which they ruled the world until they didn't. And that is probably the degree of change that we're looking at with generative AI. We just don't know exactly how it's going to manifest, but
Yeah.
don't take your eye off that.
Thank you for the knowledge bomb because I have met organizations that are still banning it. And I kind of just said to them, this is not going to be like the cloud and Dropbox. Remember when the cloud was going to remember your data couldn't be in the cloud. We had on-premise war. It's not want to be one of those where you're going to, where you're going to kind of fight it until Dropbox drops an IPO that everybody goes, oh my God, it's not going to happen. OpenAI has opened a can of worms. And the reality is this, and sorry, like data leaders, if you are listening, data workers, if you have employees that are not using AI, they're working harder and not smarter. That's the reality. So if you're enabling people to work harder and you want them to be doing things that is not the best use of their time, that in itself is a question on your leadership. That's my personal feel on that. I know it's pretty candid, but that's how I feel. Okay. I know we have to wrap up here. And by the way, AOF, you guys have probably some excellent questions in the comments. Steve has agreed, I think, to go back in the comments and answer those right after we're done.
Yep.
So keep the questions coming. He's amazing. And by the way, he works for LinkedIn, so he is on LinkedIn. But let's get this wrapped up now because I think this is. Oh, one more thing, and not to tout LinkedIn. Sorry, LinkedIn is huge, and I don't even know what your business model is, to be honest. But like, what do companies do if they want to get involved? Right? It's not a LinkedIn sponsor. Is it that they just buy a all you can eat for the whole company? Like, what is like? Because I know as an individual, I know I have premium because I'm a course creator. But as an individual, I can just subscribe and get my own little subscription, right? And I have access to everything, right?
Yep, it's an all-you-can-eat model. So for an individual, I think it has been the monthly rate in the U.S. anyway. Has been $29.99 a month. It's been like that for a
Not
couple
bad.
of years at the very least. Um,
Mhm.
and then there's a tiered model, like a table with all different kinds of variations on it, especially for it's designed for enterprises and the different bells and whistles that you can get. Just search on LinkedIn for subscription rates, and you'll have all of the
Yeah.
latest, greatest information on that.
But my question is, let's say you take this route quickly and you're a deal leader and you go, you know what? I don't have a department for this. I'm just gonna give my whole team a subscription. With
Mhm.
2,000 classes, number one, how do I kind of direct what I need my team to focus on? And number two, what is the benefit? Online, I see a lot of LinkedIn certificates. What's the benefit of a LinkedIn certificate?
I'm glad you asked. I mean, so we have dozens of learning paths curated by folks like me, content managers, where we put together selection of courses
Mhm.
based on roles in various orgs. Obviously,
Mm.
no two organizations are alike with regard to their data roles or whatnot. But those kinds of criteria we put in, we take into account as we create learning paths. They're extremely popular, especially with enterprise accounts, and a lot of what informs our knowledge about curating these learning paths is what we learn in interacting with enterprise accounts. Because folks like me at LinkedIn Learning, this is one of the things that we do. All of our producers, you mentioned the studios in Carpinteria, which are just north of Los Angeles, located
Mhm.
there because of its proximity to Hollywood. Yes, the industry is still in LA, and a lot of folks who work at our studios um,
Correct.
have a
Yeah,
background there. But our
they're
producers
awesome.
who work in the studios are educational design specialists. So that's kind of the mojo that they bring to what LinkedIn Learning produces. Content managers like myself, we interact with enterprise accounts, with those L&D admins
Mhm.
in enterprises to get a really solid understanding about what organizations are needing. And we curate these learning paths of collections of courses that
I
help
didn't know that.
enterprise
Okay.
enterprises drill into. So for example, a learning and development admin can say, all right, in interacting with their own engineering department, for example, can say,
Yeah.
all right, we want everybody in our department to take the following courses. Sometimes it might be an assignment of an already set learning path. The other thing, though, is that they can create their own learning paths, which is cool. They can kind of
I
create
didn't know that.
their own specialized learning for people on their own teams. With regard to certificates, man, talk with an L&D admin. A lot of orgs
Mm,
love those because they use them inside their own orgs to to show somebody's skill building process in their own kind of
nice.
annual performance reviews and whatnot. They can say, yes, here I've done this, I've taken this, and of course
Nice.
a lot of people love to be able to put on their LinkedIn profile the certificate
Yes, I
of
know
what
that.
they've taken and everything. And that's a huge deal. LinkedIn started a long time ago, almost 20 years, I think. But it
Mhm.
started as a big online Rolodex, and it has gone so much farther since then. So it's no longer just a Rolodex. It's everybody being able to see and interact with everybody else in a very organized way. So it's amazing. I
Agreed.
mean, well, LinkedIn is a data company um, with
Yes.
really pristine principles about this. Um, we are serious as can be about privacy, about responsible governance, about protecting our users' data. And that has always been the absolute number one priority at this company, and it still is. Um, it's a great company. I don't mean to wax poetic, but
No, no,
we
no.
are
I
very
had the
we
best
are very good about.
experience.
Yeah, we're very good at what
Yeah,
we do,
no.
and I'm very proud of that.
It's special.
And
It's
yeah,
special. I have to say the just even the I when I went back to the LinkedIn Learning, I was there what just a couple of months ago, 2023, and when I saw the creativity that was done on the walls, I mean, I'm inspired from the time I step into those rooms. It's a very special place. Like seriously, it's a very special place. So I think when people see the content coming out, again, like you walked in and LinkedIn has done everything I feel visually, experience wise, even as a creator to make sure that you come with your best self. Right. So they don't just, like I said, it's not just plug in the microphone and let's go. They really invest to make sure that the content creators are ready to deliver. And it's like a full Hollywood studio. So, okay. All right. I know we have to wrap up here. And again, I know we probably have some amazing questions and Steve and myself will hop in there. Steve, let us wrap this up. So just really quickly here, because we have to get this wrapped up. Who inspires you?
it sounds like a general answer, but my nieces and nephews, young people everywhere,
Oh,
and
nice.
I say this because, man, take a look around the world and the condition of the world today, um,
Yeah.
and the young people I interact with are the ones
Yeah.
who are looking around
Yeah.
thinking, this is what's been given us, this is what we have to work with. Um,
Mm.
who inspires me is all of those young folks who still I think sometimes still have the nerve to change the world. Um, they're probably like,
Yeah.
the nerve or not, we have no choice. But they're
Correct.
not giving up, and if they're not giving up, I'm not giving up. We need to all keep that cycle going. We need to inspire the young people around us and remind them um, that better times are always possible, and that's what we are here for, um,
Thank you
to
for
make the
that. I
world a
think a
better
lot of
place.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will resonate with that. We don't even need to go into world events. You can't hide from it, even if you want to stay off of social
Yeah.
media. So thank you for that. And I'm sure some of the younger people watching feel great about that to know that they have the support. All right. One of my favorite questions and AOF's favorite questions, because you've dropped a lot of knowledge bombs here. Could you recommend one book or tool to AOF? Obviously, besides LinkedIn Learn, I think we understand the benefit of that. And why, just really quickly.
Yeah, I'll give you two books that I've just read in the last few months. One is Homo Deus. The subtitle
Mm-hmm.
is A Brief History of Tomorrow. So that's by Yuval Noah Harari. Um, and he wrote it. He wrote a best-selling book called *Sapiens*, and this is his follow-up to that.
Sapiens is so good. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so *Homo Deus* is, all right. So what if? Well, what are the phases of human development, and what and what he ends the book with, the final part of the book, Deus meaning the Latin for God. Um, and he ends the book with, are we moving into um, a future where everything is data driven, including how humans interact with one
Wow.
another? So that's actually very germane to what our discussion has been today. But it's a great tool for helping you pull back and see the broader picture. The other book, this is so wonderful. So it's the work called The World's IC, and it is um, it's an autobiography slash tech memoir by Dr. Fei Li.
Mhm.
She is the head of AI at Stanford, and if you
Wow.
Google her, um, she's like, oh yeah, so she's the person who interacted with Linda Gates on the initiative to begin drawing attention to bias in AI a few years ago. But the name of the book is The Worlds I See. The subtitle is Curiosity, Exploration, and Discovery at the Dawn of AI. The cool thing about this book, it's the greatest tech memoir I've ever read because it is the story of her journey coming to this country as a child, growing up in
So
this
good.
country. I mean, she was helping. She was working in her parents' dry cleaning store in high school, trying to make grades. And just trying to get by. She didn't think there's any way she would ever be able to go to college. She wound up getting a full ride scholarship to Princeton, and that led to
Wow.
another thing and led to another thing. And she is probably um, the number one voice for using AI responsibly in the
I love
world.
it.
She's also one of the people. She's also one of the people who actually made AI happen. It's an amazing bio. The Worlds I See by Fei Li and Dr. Fei Li. And it's a really great read too. She's a heck of a writer and a wonderful
Nice.
storyteller.
Okay.
Anyway, I could
Well, I
go
put it
on. I
here.
won't.
No, it's fine. I put the I put it there on the screen. People can go to obviously Amazon to find it, but thank you for that. And I definitely would check it out. That's a unique one. All right, guys. I know that you guys know that we used to do our sessions for an hour. I'm doing my best to cut them down just a little bit because I know we have a new format here. Again, if you have questions that are there, Steve will answer them. Steve, where can people find you online?
Find me at LinkedIn. I am Steve C. Weiss. I'm the guy
Mm-hmm.
who, you see that in my profile there, the one who
Mm-hmm.
works at LinkedIn. If you find another Steve Weiss who works at LinkedIn, there's only one other one right now. There was a while where there were three Steve Weisses working at the larger LinkedIn corporation,
Oh,
and that was always a lot of fun with getting each other's emails and whatnot. But
yeah.
anyway, look for me on LinkedIn. And I
Okay.
look forward to seeing questions and responses and comments from Analytics on Fire followers. It's just been wonderful,
Yeah.
Nico. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. And AOF, I know you guys. I know I'm gonna get. I just dawned on me. I didn't ask you how to become a LinkedIn course creator. Shame on me. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask you to put that in the comments. People are gonna ask. It's probably already sitting there. I've not been able to go through all the questions, but thank you so much for being on, Steve. And yeah, look forward to having you again. I think that what I would love to do in the future, if AoF agrees, is we'd like to hear those stats. I mean, I want to hear. Excel just blew my mind. I didn't know that before time. And so I'd love to have you back on to honestly talk about the data. That's, I think that's very telling as to where the industry is. All right, Steve, thank you so much, from my heart and from AoF. I think AoF is a bit of a cult and a fan club at the best, so I think you're going to meet a lot of interesting people, leaders included, and teams. Also, AoF, you guys know what I say. You guys are the results of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and you guys have now spent what, almost like an hour with me and Steve. And so, you guys know I encourage you that when you listen to this type of stuff, whether you are the data leader, you're the data worker, you're the data professional, take action, right? It could be LinkedIn Learning, it could be Udemy, I don't care what it is, but just understand, if you stop learning, the journey's done, right? Like, it's over. And so Steve gave a lot of knowledge bombs in here and actionable advice. Also, reach out to him. He's a great person to know. He's someone that I've learned from. He's super friendly. His whole team is pretty amazing, to be honest with you. So I thank you guys for being here. Thank you for the questions. And yeah, let's share with other people and rock and roll. All right, AoF, love you guys. And Steve, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.